All right, it says we're live, so I guess we might as well get started. Got the right microphone plugged in, got the right everything set up. We are all ready to go here on this week's live Panther-Lair Show on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. Of course, you should know that by now. The website is Panther-Lair.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. It's where you get all your Pitt football, basketball, recruiting, transfer portal coverage, all those things. We covered at Panther-Lair.com, and you talk to other Pitt fans all day, every day on the message boards. Sorry, I get distracted by the chat screen. Sometimes you guys ask questions or post things over there, and people are already jumping into the chat, and I get distracted. I start thinking about what oh, that's an interesting question. Oh, I'd like to talk about that. Well, you gotta stay focused, right? We're introing the show. This is when we intro the show. We don't get distracted by the questions. But Swim Boyd has a great one. I'm already thinking about the answer to that. Joey Dealey jumped in with some questions as well. Josh Newark is there. You guys who are showing up early, we appreciate it. Jump in on the chat screen if you want to make sure your chat gets read, your comment gets read, your question gets answered, whatever it may be. You can be a super chatter. Click that little $ down there. We probably don't promote that as much as we should. Support the podcast, and we'll make sure we get to that comment and that question. Of course, what we always ask you to do, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm actually going to say all that stuff at like 9 o'clock, like halfway through the show when we have like everybody tuned in, not just the first like dozen or so of you who jump in when we first go live. I'm going to save all the like and subscribe talk for a little bit later so everybody can, get a little bit more engagement out of that. But we got a lot to get to tonight on the live show, as we always do. Jim's on assignment. He's not on assignment. He's on vacation somewhere, Delaware, Jersey, Stone Harbor, or Bethany Beach. I don't know. Who can keep track of him? The man's all over the place. He's a jet setter. And so we're not going to bother him at the beach. We'll let him, relax and dip his toes in the sand. And we will, catch back up with him next week. But it's not like we have a shortage of things to talk about this week. Certainly after the second official visit weekend, Pitt got 4 more commitments, brings the recruiting class up to 19. 18 of those have been announced, and 18 have been announced. The one unannounced is a guy who visited over this past weekend, so we're just kind of waiting for him to make his announcement. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen in the middle of the live show, but we can only be so fortunate. There's only been a few times where we've had real breaking news in the middle of a live show. I think, the most famous one, of course, was when Kenny Pickett announced he was coming back for the 2021 season. We were live that night. I forget if we were doing it on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or when it was, but it happened live during the show. So that was exciting to have that. We don't usually get one of those, but that one happened, and I'm trying to think what else happened. I guess when they put Guillermo Diaz-Graham in the starting lineup this year, I feel like that happened during we were doing like a pregame show. I think it was Guillermo. There haven't been all that many instances of breaking news during the live stream, but it happens every now and then. The Kenny news was definitely the biggest one. That was one that I think, certainly drew my attention, drew everybody else's attention and gave us something to talk about that night, and obviously led to the best season of Pitt football in 40 years. So we'll see if any kind of news comes out. But as we were saying, 19 commitments so far for this recruiting class. I think the class will probably settle in, when it's all said and done, 23 to 25 guys. So another 4 to 6 commitments. I wouldn't be surprised if they settle right in the middle there with 24 commitments. We talked about this on the Morning Pit today of, what positions they still need to add. I think they could use a running back. They've got one committed in Damon Ferguson. He's really good, but I think they could use another one, just kind of given the state of the overall state of the roster. They need more help at running back this year. This 2026 recruiting class is not going to help with that, but it could help for next season. I think they could probably use a little assistance there. I think they need some defensive linemen. Running back is probably the only position on offense I think they need to address. I think the fourth, the unknown commitment, the guy who hasn't announced yet, is probably a wide receiver. And so I feel like the offense is probably pretty well set. They've got two quarterbacks. They've got, three wide receivers that we know of, probably four. They've got a tight end. I know some people would like to see them take a second tight end. I don't really see the point in that. I don't think the tight ends really like I'm almost at the point where I'm like abolish the tight ends, in terms of Pitt's offense. Like, why even put that guy out there? Last year, Gavin Bartholomew and Jake Overman didn't stay into block all that much. They were just running pass routes and they weren't really getting that many targets. They ended up with like 57 receptions for the tight ends, but they didn't really turn it into much, 6 touchdowns. But I think you could get that out of wide receivers and running backs. You might as well put 2 running backs on the field. I think you could probably do more damage that way. I'm so, I don't want to say down on the tight ends, but I mean, I'm really kind of, I just have such low expectations for the tight ends. And so I don't really see a need to take a second tight end recruit in this class. I think there are other positions that you could address and need to address. And so when I look at the offense, and they've got 4 offensive linemen, I think that's enough for this recruiting class. I think they could stand to have another running back. And that's about it on offense. And then the other additions that I would make to this class, I would try to get 2 more defensive linemen, 1 more tackle and 1 more end. They've only got 1 tackle and 1 end. And quite frankly, it wouldn't be the worst thing if they ended up with 3 of each. At the least, I think they need to have 2 tackles and 2 ends in this class. They've got 3 linebackers, so I think they're set there, but they only have 1 corner and 1 safety. Pat Narduzzi's never going to sign a recruiting class that only has 1 corner and 1 safety. I mean, he can't do it. It runs counter to everything he believes and everything he does and how he's built this roster over the past 10 years. They're not going to do that. So I think they could take and probably will take 1 more corner and 1 more safety. And that's probably how I would fill out this recruiting class. And, depending on who they get to fill some of those spots, the 2 D-line spots in particular, I think this class will be pretty solid. I forgot to check before the show started of where the recruiting class ranks right now. I think it was in the 20s. As of tonight, it's the number 24 class in the country, both in the 24/7, the 247 rankings and the composite rankings. Remember, the composite rankings take all of the, the whole recruiting industry and kind of put it together. The recruiting industry is higher on Dejon Moore, the offensive lineman, Damon Ferguson, the running back, and Reston Lehman, the defensive end from Peters Township. The industry is higher on those guys than 247 is. 247 has everybody in Pitt's class as a 3-star prospect right now. More Justin Lehman as 4-star prospects. The industry also has Nick Howard, the offensive lineman from Texas, Jaden Dunbar, the big receiver from Georgia, and Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from Virginia, right outside that 4-star territory in the industry, the 247 composite, whereas the 247 analysts have those guys a little bit lower. They have Dunbar actually as the top recruit in the class, just a touch outside the 4-star range. Ditto for Isaiah Simmons, ditto for Nick Howard. And then Damon Ferguson, Reston Lehman, and Marcus Jennings come after that. So, interesting sort of ranking stuff there. They a lot of these guys track as high-end 3-star prospects right now, according to 247. A couple of them, are, in addition, 4-star prospects in the 247 composite, which, again, is sort of a combination of all of the rankings that are out there, 247 and Rivals and On3 and ESPN. And it's kind of interesting to put them all together and kind of, shake it up and see what you come out with. And what you come out with is 3 4-star prospects, which is a pretty good spot. Either way, Pitt currently has a top 25 recruiting class. Some of that's going to be based on the quantity, the size of the class, with 18 commitments right now, 18 announced commitments right now. As other recruiting classes, other schools fill up their classes around the country, that ranking is going to drop. I think, we see this happen all the time. Pitt gets a bunch of June commitments, climbs into the top 30, top 25, occasionally top 20 in the recruiting rankings. Everybody gets excited about it. Then as the numbers sort of normalize a little bit and everybody ends up with 18 to 20 commitments, they settle in the 30s or the 40s. It's probably where this recruiting class will settle in as well. And that's okay because they've done pretty well with recruiting classes in the 30s and the 40s. They've done pretty well with recruiting classes built like this with 3-star prospects, high-end 3-star guys, and that's what they've got. And I think there's some really good recruits in this class. There are some guys I really like. out of this group. Somebody asked, let me get to a question. Adam Vichik said, what linebacker prospect that committed do you like the most? It's hard to say because they're all athletic and intriguing. Yeah, I like the linebackers here a lot. I like all of these guys. I think Marcus Jennings from Cass Tech and Desmond Johnson from, he's from, Miami. Both really good. But the one guy who jumps out to me is Isaiah Simmons. He's about 6 foot, 200 pounds at Norfolk, Virginia, Maury High School in Norfolk, Virginia. I think he's just a stud. I think he's such a perfect fit for Pitt's defense. I really like Marcus Jennings. I really like Desmond Johnson. I think it'd be huge for Pitt to hold on to those guys. But I think Simmons is the one. I think Simmons is the guy at the top of the linebacker group in this class, and maybe one of the best overall prospects in this class. Super productive guy in high school, an all-state performer, all 3 years of his high school career so far, team's leading tackler, a starter, just really productive, really excellent football player who, again, really fits in Pitt's defense. And we had the morning Pitt, I think it was yesterday, when we talked about the linebacker position, how it became a strength for Pitt, and how it became maybe Pitt's biggest strength. And part of it, I mean, I really tie it back to Ryan Manilak getting hired to be the Pitt's linebackers coach and kind of the influence that he's had. And I think the biggest thing that Manilak has done, and I think it's the biggest thing that Pitt overall has done with recruiting linebackers, is they've really honed in on a type. They've really found the kind of guy that they want and the kind of guy they like. And they've gone and gotten those guys, and they've been a good fit. And you could go back through the recruiting classes. You could go back to 2020 with Bengali Kamara and Solomon DeShields. I think they were trending in that direction. 2021 was Preston Levant. Guys never took official visits. It was COVID. Everything was weird. But you go forward to 2022, you got Kyle Lewis and you got Marquand Pope. And Pope was a safety in high school, same mold as these guys. He was just declared medically ineligible once he got to Pitt. Kyle Lewis, obviously, we've seen what he's become. 2023, you get, just a great class with Jordan Bass, Rasheem Biles, and Braylon Lovelace. I mean, studs. I mean, really, really good players. Biles is, I've said this a million times. I mean, I think he can be every bit the player Lewis was last year. And in some respects, I think he was every bit the player Lewis was last year. And in some respects, depending on how you look at the numbers, you could even make the case that he was maybe even a little better than Lewis, who ended up obviously being an All-American. And then Lovelace, I think, has been really good, and I think he'll be even better this year. And I think Jordan Bass will end up having a good career. I forget where he transferred to. Let me bring that up real quick because I have our transfer tracker. Jordan Bass transferred to Virginia Tech. So, that's not a surprise. He's from Virginia. He stays in the ACC, and I think he'll be really good there because there was a time when I thought he was going to be the best out of those three guys of him, Rasheem Biles, and Braylon Lovelace. That hasn't happened so far, but I think Bass could be a stud. 2024, then they bring in Cam Lindsey and they bring in Jeremiah Marcelin and they bring in Davin Bruton. I mean, that's a really good class right there. We'll see about last year's group. I'm not as sure about Justin Thompson and Emmanuel Taylor. I like them. I think they fit the profile. I think they're athletic guys. They don't jump off the page the way that Lindsey and Marcelin did, and even Davin Bruton, certainly, the way that Bass and Biles and Lovelace did. And I don't think they jump off the page the way the guys in the current recruiting class, 2026 class, do. But we'll see. I think, again, they found their type, and I think those guys, Thompson and Taylor, fit that type from the 2025 recruiting class. But then you jump forward to this year's class, these 2026 guys, Isaiah Simmons and Marcus Jennings and Desmond Johnson. I mean, I think they just look like studs. I think they look like great fits for the defense. They're really productive in high school. They had good offer sheets. I mean, this feels drawn up in a lab of what you would want to find to restock Pitt's linebacker position. Because they just look that good. Which guy do I like the most? To Adam's question, it's Isaiah Simmons. I mean, Isaiah Simmons has been really good in high school, an absolute stud for a team that wins a lot. A first, an all-state performer, puts up a big stats and steps up, has big performances. I just think he's really good. So he's probably the guy I like the most. But even before he committed, I felt like Marcus Jennings was going to be one of the toughest guys for Pitt to hold on to as a standout at Cass Tech, a really good linebacker prospect. Cass Tech, Detroit, Michigan in general, but particularly as you get more into Detroit, I feel is just, if you can get a commitment from there, you're going to fight and hold on to it. And if you end up signing that kid, you earned it. You know what I mean? Because you're going to go through a battle, because if they're worth anything, everybody's going to know about it, and you're going to have to hold off, at the highest end, you're going to have to hold off Michigan, but even if it doesn't quite get to that point, you're going to have to fight off Michigan State. You're going to have to fight off Indiana now, who might be a legitimate competitor. You have to fight off Wisconsin. You're going to have to fight off the rest of the Big Ten, basically. And even to the point where it could get challenging with like Purdue rolling in. So I always felt like Marcus Jennings was going to be a challenge. That was going to be the biggest battle to hold on to him. But then they went out and got guys who might even be just as good, if not better. And so now the challenge is holding on to all three of them, because one of those guys happens to be in Miami as well. And the other one happens to be Isaiah Simmons, who just might be, like I said, maybe in my opinion, the best of the bunch. All right. Let's jump into some other comments and questions here. We'll go back and forth on the recruiting class. There's plenty to talk about in that regard. Joey Dealey started it off. Ethan McBacco is visiting tomorrow. Do you think Pitt has a good chance to land him on the visit or even after? Also, any other targets as of right now for basketball? I know it's early. Yeah, Mbacco, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name. He's a 4-star prospect at Oak Hill Academy. He's a wing, a 6'6", 215-pound wing. He's got the visit to Pitt. Starting tomorrow, an official visit. He's a rising senior. He's going into his senior year of high school, so it's a little bit early in the process here. More visits will likely be on the way, although I don't think anything has really, I don't really see anything else being reported or talked about. But I don't know. I don't have a great feel for it. I don't have a great feel for where Pitt stands with him. We'll see what things happen kind of throughout this visit. Our guy Houston Wilson will be all over it, so make sure you stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com for the coverage there. But I don't. I'm not really sure what what the status is there. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what comes out of it during this visit. But like I say, stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com. Our guy Houston Wilson will have the coverage there. Joey Dealey also says, as of also on 247, as of right now, it says we no longer have anyone visiting this weekend. How many do you think we'll have? Yeah, 247. That's our website. We had to make some adjustments there because the official visit weekend has changed up quite a bit. There were some guys who had previously said they were going to be visiting this weekend. Some switched to previous weekends. Some are just not visiting at all. Some committed to other schools. We think there'll be some guys on campus. This might be one of those weekends where things kind of stay quiet, and we have to dig pretty deep to try and come up with some names. And there's different reasons why things stay quiet sometimes, but I kind of think that might be the case this weekend. We'll see what comes out. Maybe they'll end up not having anybody on campus. My guess is there will be somebody there, some recruits, but we're going to have to work and see what we can come up with. As of right now, we have not confirmed any official visitors for the weekend. Everybody who previously said they were going to visit now seems like they're not. So it's it's kind of up in the air. So we'll play that one by ear. But of course, Joey, if you want to stay up on all of it, when we confirm names, it's going to be on the message board. So Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com. Swim Boyd says, I've been going down the off-season rabbit hole of game highlight reels. If you could go back and cover one game again, which would it be? Of games that I covered, that I was there for, I mean, Josh Newark says 13-9. Yeah, 13-9 would be one that I would want to go back and cover again. Because that was pretty that was pretty incredible, an incredible game to cover. I'll tell you, the next year when Pitt went out to Notre Dame and won in like 3 or 4 overtimes, with Connor Lee kicking all those field goals and LaShawn McCoy, doing what he did. And I don't know if you remember, like at one point in one of the overtimes, Pitt was down at one end of the field and the sprinklers went on at the other end of the field. It was an iconic night. It was an iconic game. It was a legendary game. Dave Wanstead, who was at Pitt today, apparently, according to his Twitter and Pat Narduzzi's Twitter. Dave Wanstead said after the game, like, this is the kind of game that like legendary performances are made. And, Connor Lee had a legendary performance that night. LaShawn McCoy had a legendary performance that night. It was a great night. I think it was probably like a 3:30 game. So by the end of the game, it was dark. It was under the lights. It was a great night, a great game, a great setting, the best setting for college football that you're going to find. And so I would love to go back and see that one again. Of games that I covered, those two would probably be right there at the top, the 13-9 game and that Notre Dame game the next year in 2008. Of games I did not cover in person, there are a couple. One would be the 2016 game at Clemson. I did not travel for that. In 2016, I started not traveling for road games, covering them from home and doing kind of work there. But, saving some budget and also just kind of changing our approach to coverage. And it's ultimately led to us doing post-game shows after the road games, and we start like right after the game. And so, it's kind of worked out well. I think we have a lot of fun with those. But that would be one I would have liked to have been there for, to see that in person, to get a better sense, just get the feel for the game of being there. And then the other one would be the 2004 Notre Dame game, the Tyler Palco game, the 5 touchdowns and all of that. Like there again, that one, all the things I said about the 2008 game of legendary performances where legends are born, and in that great setting at Notre Dame where, forever, however condescending, I've said this a million times, however condescending Notre Dame fans are, for however pretentious they are, like you totally get why they are so condescending and pretentious when you go to a game at Notre Dame. It's like, yeah, I would probably think I was better than everyone else too. If I was Notre Dame, if I was a Notre Dame fan and that was like my home field and that was where all the games were played and that was where I was going to, I would think I was awesome too. I would think I was better than everybody else because it kind of is better than everybody else. It's just a special place. And so I think after I started covering games there, the first time I covered a game at Notre Dame was the 2008 game. Like I mentioned, I was out there in 2010 and 2012 and 2018. So I guess I've covered 4 games there. 8, 10, 12, 14. Yeah. Or 18, excuse me. I've covered 4 games there. And, like from the time I got out there, I was like, oh yeah, this is like, I get it. I get it. Like this is a special place for sure. So I would probably pick some of those games to cover. John Jingleheimer Schmidt says, if you had to put your 401k on one uncommitted visitor from week 1 committing, who would it be? That's an interesting question. Let me see. Kind of go through the list. Larry Miles, the wide receiver, is interesting. Xavier Jackson, the corner from Bergen Catholic. Logan Nagel, the defensive lineman from DePaul Catholic. They could certainly use him. Jafar Jean Noel, the former West Virginia commit from American Heritage in Fort Lauderdale. He's a wide receiver. He's out there. I don't think it'll be another wide receiver. Javonte Williams, the tight end from Maryland. So probably if I was going to narrow it down, I would say I'm guessing it's not going to be one of the wide receivers. I don't think they'll take 5 wide receivers in this class. So you're looking at maybe Javonte Williams, tight end from Maryland. I think you're looking at maybe Xavier Jackson, the cornerback from New Jersey. Logan Nagel, the defensive lineman from New Jersey, probably one of those 3. And out of those 3, if I was going to put money on it, I don't know. Williams, maybe Javonte Williams, the tight end, even though I said earlier that I didn't think they needed another tight end and I didn't think they would get another tight end. I guess that would be the guy I would pick, but I don't know. Jackson and Nagel both seem to like Pitt a lot. They had a good visit. I would probably one of those guys. Let's see. Scrolling through here. John Jingleheimer Schmidt says, why not take a 5th offensive lineman? Well, they've got 4 committed, And they took, I just want to bring up last year's recruiting class. They took 4 in last year's class as well. They still have 3 redshirt freshmen. You need to restock. You need to fill up, right? And this is a bigger recruiting class, so I think that allows you to take extra numbers at spots like offensive line. But I don't know if they need more than 4. I mean, they could, right? And I think they would have room to do it. I talked a lot about this on today's morning pit. I think that, you know, the change in the scholarship limits, changing it to just a straight up roster limit, means you're not really going to be limited in your recruiting class by that 85-man scholarship limit anymore. You're pretty much going to be able to take whoever you want or however many guys you want in any given year. You probably will never run up against that 105 and bump into that and run out of room necessarily. And so they would have the space to do it. I don't know if they need to. I think taking 4 in back-to-back classes, and they took 4 in the 2024 class too. They took Giovanni Cooley and Caleb Holmes and Mason Lindsay and Adham Abaraya. Abaraya since transferred. So they have 3 guys left from that group. They have 4 freshmen this year, and they've got 4 recruits committed. So, you know, current roster has 7 freshmen and redshirt freshmen, 4 guys already committed here. I think you're rebuilding that foundation, even if you just take 4. Now, if there's a good offensive lineman out there who wants to come in, wants to be, you know, recruit number 5 in this class, okay, you take him. You're not going to say no if it's a good guy, you know, a good player that you feel like can help you. But I don't know if it's necessarily a need. I think 4 should be enough. And again, I don't think they're going to run up against any limits. I think the class will probably settle in around 23 or 24 because I just sort of get the impression that's what they're looking for. But if they are going to kind of limit it to 23 or 24 spots, or let's just say 24 spots, like I think they need a defensive end and a defensive tackle, you know, at least one of each. I think they need a corner and a safety. And so that's 4 right there. So your other spot that you're, you know, potentially playing with, you could give it to a running back. I guess you could give it to a tight end. I just don't see the need for an investment there. Or you could give it to an offensive lineman if you're so inclined. Again, if the right guy is available. But I don't think it's something they need to press for. I don't think it's something that's a major need because they've got 4 commitments already. Joey Dealey says, I would love to get both Zach Turner and Ace Theus from Duncanville, Texas, but I don't think we will. Yeah, I mean, both of those guys are wide receivers, and they both look really good. I think they're both really intriguing players, but if Pitt's got 4 wide receivers committed now, I know they're trying to restock, right? And so they took 3 receivers in last year's class. They've taken a bunch, 5 transfers over the last 2 years. They're trying to rebuild that receiver room. I don't know 5 wide receivers in a class. I mean, that's a complete overhaul. And maybe it's needed, right? Sincere Lee and Deuce Spann and Raphael Williams will be done after this year. Kenny Johnson's a junior this year. So conceivably this could be his last year at Pitt. We'll see. Blue Hicks and Zion Fowler in the sophomore class, both red shirts. Tyreek Robinson is a redshirt freshman, and then 3 true freshmen. So, they've got right now, they're projected to have 10 scholarship receivers on the roster. Those numbers could go down really fast. You know what I mean? If Lee, Spann, and Williams are all gone and Johnson goes, and I don't know, I mean, he could transfer, he could have a great season, go to the NFL, whatever it might be. Like, that's 4 guys right off the top. And if you lose 1 or 2 to transfers, now all of a sudden your numbers you've gone from 10 to like 4, right? In which case you probably will wish you had 5 or 6 receivers in the recruiting class. But I think it's probably more likely they would try to sign 4 and go supplement with guys out of the transfer portal. Now, the one caveat to that, okay, and I guess this would be a caveat with the offensive line as well, and maybe any of these positions. They might have 4 commitments from receivers right now, and they might take another 1 or 2 commitments from wide receivers. You say, oh my God, why would they sign 5 receivers, 6 receivers? Well, having commitments right now doesn't necessarily mean they're going to sign those guys, right? I mean, decommitments happen. Schools walk away from guys at the same time. So they might end up with 5 receivers committed at some point, or 5 offensive linemen committed at some point, and still only sign 4 at each of those positions. I think you do have to account for some built-in attrition. It's just part of the game nowadays. And so I think you do have to, like I say, kind of bake that in that like, oh, they've got 19 commitments right now. Well, really that number's probably about 16, right? Or 17 or 15, somewhat, 2 to 4 decommitments from that group just because it happens. And it's happened every year since they started having these June official visits and getting all these commitments in June. It's happened every year that they've lost at least one or two. I have my spreadsheet of like all the guys they've gotten from June official visits, and I put the guys who decommitted in parentheses. And let me here bring up my OV commits spreadsheet, and whether it was Kadri Jackson and Brandon Mack, T. Denson and Henry Parrish and Timothy Brown, Shelton Lewis, Bryce Pollock and Philip Daniels, Jason Johnson and Yassine Willis, Demarion Folks and Elijah Dotson, like every year. Every year that they've had official visits in June, they've gotten a bunch of commitments. They've gotten, however many, like double digits over the course of June every year since they started having these. Well, except for where's my list? Oh, there we go. It looked like the numbers were really low the one year, but it was just scrolled over to the side. But anyway, they've gotten like double digit commitments every year in June with these official visits, and then they've had multiple decommitments. Yeah, Jacavian Nonar and Camden Brown, they lost those guys. Like it's every year. So you're going to have that baked in. You're going to have that understood that you'll lose some guys. And so you could take extra commitments just to give yourself a little insurance, right? A little protection against losing some of those guys. Pitt Tough Guy wants to know, where's Green? Where's Alan Green? ADs everywhere are announcing with details their sources of funding and allocation of player pay, which begins July 1st. Is the Senator Trustee Costa's board resolution holding things up? I don't think so. I think Alan Green will talk to the media and the public at some point in the near future. ADs everywhere are announcing details of their funding. I don't know. Okay. Most of them are getting loans from their schools. Now, is that coming from tuition? I don't know if that's coming from tuition, but I just, the reality is like you and me knowing how Pitt's going to pay for the rev share, it's just not a priority. Okay, it's important. There's value in it. You can drum up support if you lay out what the plan is, rather than just telling people to blindly give you cash, which is part of it right now. They need donations, right? If you don't want tuition to pay for the players, you need to donate some money. But I digress. It's valuable for the public to know what the plan is, but it's not essential to the plan. I think there are movements and machinations and different things they're doing behind the scenes to make to prepare for this, and they've been preparing for this, and he has told us that, right? And so they're preparing for it. They've been preparing for it. They'll continue preparing for it, and at some point they'll tell us what they want to tell us. But informing the public about this is just not a priority right now. It's just not. So is the board resolution holding things up? I don't know. I doubt it, but I doubt it, but I just don't, I don't know. I just don't think it's a priority for the public to know. Sorry, I started reading other questions because I was moving on. S-Mac says, hi, Chris, who has the higher ceiling, Isaiah Simmons or Bengali Kamara? So Simmons, I'm talking up here prior to his college career, just based on his high school. I didn't talk about Bengali Kamara like this. I didn't talk about Bengali Kamara in the terms that I would ultimately come to be known for until his second or third year and how he looked in camp. And the other thing the thing I always have to say about Bengali Kamara, I wasn't just inventing those things. Like when I would praise Bengali Kamara and talk about how good I thought he was going to be and how he was an NFL guy and all this stuff, some of that was based on my observations. Most of it wasn't. Most of it was based on what everybody around the program thought at that time. Everybody around the program thought that in Bengali Kamara and Solomon Shields, they had future NFL players because those guys looked like future NFL players. Now, it didn't come out on the field. It didn't ultimately translate to that, but some of that was my own observation. Some of that was my own sort of projection. And some of it was just what I was being told by people who watch a whole lot more of it and know a whole lot more about it than I do. And so, so that was when the Bengali Kamara hype really started. I don't think I hyped him up as much coming out of high school. So right now, the hype is higher for Isaiah Simmons. I'm hyping Isaiah Simmons more now than I hyped Bengali Kamara coming out of high school. But once Kamara got to college is when it started to look like he could be, that's when it looked like he could be a real stud. John Jingleheimer Schmidt says, what Pitt team do you think overachieved the most and which one underachieved and left the most amount of wins on the table? Interesting questions. The overachieved. It's funny. The underachieved feels like an easier question to answer, right? Like, you know what team always comes to mind on the underachieving side? And people probably don't think about this team very often, but the 2012 team, all right? They lost to Youngstown State. You should not lose to an FCS team. All right. They went 6-7. Well, let's just go 6-6. They're 6-6 in the regular season. They lost to Youngstown State. They should have won that. That would make them 7-5. They're at Notre Dame. They have that game won, and they should have won it. And it was Kevin Harper missing kicks, but it was also Tino Sinceri being unable to convert a fourth down in the fourth quarter. That always gets left out when Tino talked about how, they missed some field goals and that's why they lost. I mean, Tino also didn't convert a third down in the fourth quarter, but I digress. They should have won that game. That would be 8-4. The next week, after the Notre Dame game, they went to Connecticut and they fell behind 24-0 at halftime. They ended up coming back. I think they lost 24-17 or something like that. But they never should have fallen behind by that much. That makes them 9-3. And we don't even need to bring in they had, who else did they play in 2012? They got killed by Cincinnati. I remember that. That was another one of their losses. I forget who else they lost to that year. I don't think they played. Well, I have all right. Going to go down memory lane. Here we go down memory lane. I got my media guide right next to me. 2012, they lost at Syracuse by a point, 14-13. And they lost to Louisville 45-35, a game I have no memory of. So, and I don't really remember that Syracuse game where they lost 14-13. I mean, I remember that it happened, that it existed. And the next year they won at Syracuse 17-16. So back-to-back one-point games. Sneaky, close games against Syracuse, particularly up there. And they played up there 2 years in a row. So that 2012 team left 3 wins on the table right there. The 2008 team left 3 wins on the table. They should have beat Bowling Green. They should have beat Rutgers, and they should have won the Sun Bowl. And that takes a team that went 9-4 to 12-2, which is where they realistically should have been. 2021 left wins on the table, right? I mean, Western Michigan and the Miami game. Should have won the Miami game. So, but it's easier to think of these teams that underachieved and left wins on the table than it is to think about the teams that overachieved. Let me think about who overachieved here. Overachieving teams. Working back through history, 2023, no. 2022, left wins on the table. 2021, we talked about. They left wins on the table. I wouldn't say they overachieved. 2020 was 6-5. They didn't overachieve. 2019 was 8-5. They probably, I don't know. You could maybe make a case that team overachieved a little bit. The 2019 team, they went 8-5. That's nothing to write home about. They had bad losses to Miami and Boston College. A really ugly game at Virginia Tech. But I don't know how good. I mean, that team had a great defense, but the offense was not very good. First year with Mark Whipple, it wasn't going well. It was a tough transition, and they still went out. They gave, Penn State everything they could handle in that game up there, a great game, and a game where they played hard and played well and just came up short for a variety of reasons. But then they had the Central Florida win. They rattled off like 4 wins in a row, and then finally beat North Carolina for the first time since joining the ACC. I think that team might have overachieved a little bit. 2019. 2018, you could probably make a case. Well, that was the year they won the Coastal. They went 7-7. Can we say a 7-7 team overachieved? Or even a team that went 7-5 overachieved? Well, I guess I'm saying that about 2019, that they overachieved at 7-5. So it's hard to think of teams that overachieved. Paul Chryst teams, I can't really say they overachieved. Because even like the 2013 team still had, they lost at Navy, which is pretty bad. And they had some other bad ones in there as well. I don't know if any of Dave Wanstead's teams ever really overachieved. Just kind of looking through real quick. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find those teams that over. I guess Walt Harris, 2004, you could probably make a case that they overachieved a little bit, going 8-4 and winning the Big East and getting into the Fiesta Bowl and everything like that. I mean, they had their ups and downs for sure. But I think, you know, I guess you could make a case they overachieved. Walt Harris's 2004 team. Maybe Walt Harris's 1997 team. I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. Let's see. Zach Turner, the guy who visited over the weekend, Joey Dealey wants to know, are they recruiting him as a wide receiver or as a tight end? I think they like him as a wide receiver. He's 6'2", 215. And so I think they like him to play wide receiver. A little bit bigger than most of the wide receivers they typically recruit, although they did get Jaden Dunbar. Who's a really big receiver, even bigger than Zach Turner. But Zach Turner looks really good, 6'2", like 200, 215 pounds or so around there. But I think they like him as a receiver, kind of a bigger one. Brock wants to know, will you be interviewing the newcomers for the basketball team in the Morning Pit like last year? I enjoyed those. Yeah, I think we'd like to. It looks like we're doing those more like kind of group sessions. We talked to Barry Dunning Jr. last week, talked to Noyes Indrusitis today. Actually, we had a Zoom session with him. That was interesting. Good to talk to him, get a sense of what he's, perceived in being in Pitt for a few months or a month or however long he's been here. So that was an interesting conversation. I'm not sure if we'll get any of those one-on-one opportunities, but we'll try. We'll see what we can come up with. Let's see. Swim Boyd says, I think it's time for the Eli Holstein show. That'd be fun. That would be entertaining to do an Eli Holstein show. But, he says, I think it's time for the Eli Holstein show. Love the Kenny Pickett show. Would enjoy a new era of it. Yeah, I get that. And that would be fun. I would enjoy doing that. I think we had a lot of fun with the Kenny show in 2021. There aren't a lot of times that things like, well, I go back and forth, right? I generally tend to feel like more often than not, things work out. Like personally, professionally, it's just things just kind of work out. But they don't usually like work out as a major hit. And that Kenny Pickett show, unbelievable timing, right? For that thing to happen and work out like it did in the 2021 season. I mean, we planned that show in like July, and we were like, oh, this will be fun. Let's do this. We'll document your last season and training camp and all this stuff. Little did we know they would go on to win the ACC championship. Little did we know Kenny would be a Heisman Trophy finalist. Little did we know we would be documenting Pitt history, the best season in 40 years. It was pretty remarkable, but it was also a very different time for NIL. That was right at the beginning of using NIL to sort of get things like that and create content like that. It's very different now. I think it would cost a lot more to do the Eli Holstein show than it costs to do the Kenny Pickett show. I didn't do that. Sponsors paid for it. I would not have had the cash to come up with that. But, so we appreciate our sponsors. I think Well Hive sponsored that one, and shout out to Well Hive. But it would cost quite a bit more to do an NIL sponsored weekly show like we did 4 years ago. But it was a lot of fun. It was fun to check in with Kenny every week, and I think everybody enjoyed those. I hope everybody enjoyed those. I know I enjoyed doing them. Let's see. Josh Newark thinks Walt Harris's 1997 team definitely overachieved with Pete Gonzalez, the wins versus Miami and West Virginia. Yeah, I was just talking to some Pitt old heads, some folks who graduated around 2004 or so a couple days ago, and we were talking about that team, about Walt Harris when he first came in and what he did with the team and how they succeeded and exceeded expectations, and took a program that was, what did they do in the years before Walt Harris arrived, right? 1993, Pitt went 3-8. 1994, they went 3-8. 1992, they went 3-9. 1995, they went 2-9. 1996, they went 4-7. So when Walt Harris came in 1997 and went 6-6, it was a major success. And then, like you mentioned, got the wins. Got a win against Miami at home, got a win at West Virginia in triple overtime in the regular season finale, got them back to a bowl game. I mean, it was a lot of success, and I don't know if I think at this point, Walt Harris gets proper credit for the job he did at sort of rebuilding, relaunching the Pitt football program. I don't think Steve Peterson gets the credit that he should for hiring Walt Harris. But that's another topic for another day. We're not bored enough to dig into that one just yet. But Walt Harris deserves a lot of credit, and he came in and did it right off the bat and had a great season in 1997 for sure. Let's see. I love BBW says it was great seeing Dave Wanstead back. One of my favorite Pitt coaches. Yeah, it's cool. Dave Wanstead was able to be back around the program today. They tweeted it out. Pitt tweeted out a photo of Dave Wanstead and Pat Narduzzi walking together, hanging out together. Cool that he was back and around the program. Dave Wanstead always tried to bring old coaches back around the program and have the history of Pitt around the program. I think Pat Narduzzi has leaned into that as well when he can. He obviously didn't have the personal connections to Johnny Majors and Jackie Sherrill and that kind of thing. But I think Narduzzi respects the history of Pitt football and has tried to lean into it and bring former coaches, former players and just people back around the program. Voodoo IPA says 2004 grads are old heads. I'm a 2000 grad, so I guess I'm ancient. I was an undergrad for Walt's first years. I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, yeah, I graduated in like 2001, 2002. I mean, like, we graduated a quarter century ago. Like 25 years ago is a long time. That makes us old heads. Yes, I think it does. I think that qualifies under the definition of old head if you graduated college 25 years ago. Sorry, just the reality of it. So, all right. I think that's good. On a night where we don't have Jim, I think we can cut off a few minutes early, but I appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. I forgot to do the 9:00 promo to like and subscribe. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. Every day of the week, Monday through Friday, we have morning Pitt videos. We have these weekly live shows every Wednesday night. We have post-game shows, interviews, press conferences, on all those things right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So like and subscribe. That way you won't miss any of it. Of course, check out the website Panther-Lair.com to get all of our Pitt content, Pitt football, basketball, recruiting. Josh Newark wants to know a Wednesday night shot of the game. No, we're not doing shots on a school night, boss. Sorry. We're not doing shots on a school night. Maybe another time we'll do shots on a school night, but we're not doing shots on this school night. So, all right. Make sure you check out the website for all the Pitt content and the message boards to hang out with other Pitt fans. Like this video and subscribe. Thanks very much for tuning in tonight. Hope you've had a great week so far. We'll have another morning Pitt for you tomorrow and then the mailbag on Friday. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. Have a good rest of the week, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.